A transmigrator wakes in a martial arts world, but fate does not cast him as the chosen hero. Changge Gu begins from the dangerous side of the story, the villain who must survive the luck of the Sons of Fate. Spoiler warning before we begin. This is a Chinese manhua recap built only from the supplied evidence. The confirmed setup is that Changge Gu becomes a villain figure in a martial arts world, and his path to power is tied to harvesting the luck of people called Sons of Fate. That premise flips the usual cultivation fantasy. Instead of watching a lucky underdog rise against a proud enemy, we follow someone trapped in the enemy role, trying to understand how destiny works before destiny turns against him. Chapter 0 is the earliest planned point in the recap, but the supplied evidence says the two referenced images were not accessible and the OCR found no readable text. Because of that, the actual opening scene cannot be described safely. We cannot confirm who appears, where Changge Gu is located, what he does first, or whether the chapter shows his arrival, confusion, status, or immediate danger. What the recap can preserve is the function of this opening. It is meant to introduce a manhua where the main character does not begin as the heroic favorite of fate. The safe starting point is the confirmed premise: Changge is tied to a villain identity, and that role creates the core problem the following chapters must answer. Chapter 1 should normally make the premise concrete by showing the first conflict, the first social pressure, or the first choice Changge Gu makes after entering this world. However, the evidence states that 49 referenced images were not accessible and that the OCR contained no readable text. That means the chapter's characters, locations, dialogue, powers, and scene order are not safely knowable. We should not claim that Changge meets a supporting character, challenges a rival, or discovers a system unless the panels confirm it, and here they do not. The only grounded continuation is thematic. A villain protagonist in a world of Sons of Fate has to treat every lucky rival as a threat, because fate itself may protect them while leaving him exposed. Chapter 2 is also unsupported by direct visual evidence. The supplied notes say the 18 referenced chapter images were not available for inspection, and the OCR had no readable text to confirm names, setting details, dialogue, or actions. Because of that, there is no safe concrete plot summary for this chapter. Still, its place in the recap order matters. After an opening premise and a first missing turn, Chapter 2 would normally show whether Changge Gu gains control of his situation or realizes the danger is worse than expected. Since the chapter evidence is absent, the narration has to remain cautious. The confirmed conflict stays at the premise level. Changge is not simply trying to grow stronger, he is trying to overcome a role that destiny seems to have written against him. Chapter 3 comes with the clearest warning against invention. The evidence says the 16 referenced panel images were not available, the OCR could not support names or dialogue, and no concrete actions, settings, characters, powers, or progression could be verified. So this section cannot responsibly describe a fight, a cultivation technique, a political exchange, or a character reveal. What can be said is why the missing evidence matters. By Chapter 3, a manhua like this would usually be establishing how the lead's role affects his choices. Changge Gu's confirmed problem is not only that enemies exist, but that some enemies may be protected by the luck of the Son of Fate. Without panels, though, the chapter's exact contribution remains unknown. Chapter 4 continues the same evidence limitation. The supplied material says 11 images were not accessible and the OCR provided no usable text. That means the recap cannot identify a location, confirm any supporting cast member, or describe what Changge Gu does in this chapter. The known cast list includes names such as Chingge Su, Johan Lin, Mei Yin, Mingkong Yu, Gu, and Yen Ji, but the chapter evidence does not show any of them acting here, so they should not be inserted into the plot. The safe chapter beat is that the planned recap reaches another early step where the actual page content is unavailable. The larger manhua premise still points toward cultivation, rivalry, and destiny, but Chapter 4 itself cannot be summarized beyond the evidence gap. Chapter 5 is listed in the coverage spine, but the supplied evidence again reports that the 16 referenced images were not accessible and that the OCR contained no readable text. It even notes that a reliable recap would require the actual pages or a combined upload. For the script, that means we cannot present this chapter as a confirmed turning point. We cannot say Changge Gu wins, loses, manipulates someone, discovers a secret, or changes his status. Instead, we can explain what the audience should keep in mind while moving through the missing run. The confirmed story is built around a villain trying to use the luck of Sons of Fate to become stronger. Chapter 5 may develop that idea, but the provided evidence does not reveal how. Chapter 6 would normally serve as the middle pressure point of this early recap stretch, but the available evidence says 21 referenced images were not accessible and the OCR could not support any names, locations, dialogue, or narration. That prevents a safe summary of character appearances, choices, or scene changes. The recap should therefore avoid pretending that a specific rival appears or that Changge Gu makes a particular tactical move. What can be grounded is the continuing premise pressure. If Sons of Fate are enemies with unusual luck, then Changge's danger is not only physical. He is fighting the structure of a story world where certain people are favored by destiny. Chapter 6 sits in that unresolved pressure, but its exact events are unavailable. Chapter 7 has a large missing evidence block. The notes say 43 referenced chapter images were not accessible and the OCR found no readable text, so the actual panel content cannot be verified. Because of that, this section cannot identify new characters, confirm whether known cast members appear, or describe any chapter outcome. That restraint is important for a recap pipeline because generic cultivation guesses would sound confident while being unsupported. The safe continuity remains focused on Changge Gu and the known premise. He is a transmigrator placed in the villain role, and the Sons of Fate are the kind of enemies whose luck can make normal opposition dangerous. Chapter 7 may be important in the original run, but the supplied evidence does not show its events. Chapter 8 is meant to lead toward the endpoint of this planned run, but the supplied evidence says 42 referenced panels were unavailable and the OCR gave no readable text for cross-checking names, dialogue, locations, or actions. So the recap cannot build a concrete bridge into Chapter 9. We cannot confirm a cliffhanger, a confrontation, a status shift, or a cultivation reveal. The only safe bridge is the premise itself. Changge Gu's situation is compelling because he knows the world is not neutral. Fate gives some people momentum, and the villain has to either understand that momentum or be destroyed by it. Chapter 8's exact role in that chain remains unknown from the provided material. Chapter 9 is the final planned chapter in this repaired recap, but the evidence again says the 16 referenced images were not accessible and the OCR contains no readable text. That means there is no safe way to summarize the chapter's ending, identify character actions, or extract a final visible clue. The recap cannot claim a victory, defeat, reveal, or cliffhanger that the supplied panels do not show. What it can do is leave the viewer with the confirmed unresolved conflict. Changge Gu is the main character named by the evidence, and he stands inside a martial arts world as a villain who wants to harvest the luck of Sons of Fate. The next proper recap needs visible chapter evidence to explain how that conflict actually unfolds. This early run is unusual to recap because the chapter evidence is mostly an absence, not a sequence of confirmed scenes. Still, the confirmed premise is strong enough to frame the hook. Changge Gu is not a standard heroic cultivator. He is a transmigrator forced into a villain identity, and his path depends on taking advantage of the luck carried by destined rivals. That makes the story less about simple training and more about survival against narrative momentum. The unresolved question is how far he can bend that destiny before the Sons of Fate bend it back against him. That is the evidence-bound recap for this early Chinese manhua stretch. Once the actual chapter panels are available, the next version can become a true beat-by-beat breakdown of Changge Gu's choices and consequences.